I'm Christine Jacobs, and I'm the Executive Director of Represent PA, and I welcome you to today's breakfast briefing. One of the things we've talked about over the last few years is we've spread the word about our work, but also talked about why you should care about who you vote for. We've talked a lot about various policy issues in Harrisburg and what would be different if we elected, if we had a Democratic majority and if we had strong progressive women making up that majority. Today we're going to have a little bit different discussion, and today what we want to talk about is an area that Represent does not work in. We don't support judges. We don't raise money for them. We don't talk about them. But there's been a lot of interest. It's a very big issue going on right now in Pennsylvania, and this is an election year for judges. And so we decided to take the time today to talk about what we're calling Civics for Voters. And this branch of Civics for Voters is, what do judges do? How's the court system organized? And how do I pick who to vote for? So we're very pleased today to have Judge Federica Messiah-Jackson on. She's a retired judge from the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas and recently retired, but she worked on a wide variety of cases. And so she can talk from the inside of what it's like in the court system. And then we also have a returning speaker, Debbie Gross from Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts. Debbie most recently talked with us about the judicial redistricting and what was going on in Harrisburg on instead of voting for statewide courts, we'd have regional or just you'd vote for somebody in your own area and why that would not be a good idea. The good news is on this subject is the legislature probably figured out they didn't have enough votes for it or wouldn't, so they did not go ahead with approving it to put on the May ballot, but we're sure that it'll be back in some form at some time, and it's a good discussion topic. But Debbie used to serve on the Bar Association's Committee for Judicial Selection, and so we thought she'd be a great person to teach us about the courts in general. Civics for Voters. We all, by the fact that you're on this call, you recognize that voting is important. But how do we learn what positions and who to vote for and how to decide and what these people do? Many years that I was in Pennsylvania, early on, probably the first 20 years I lived in Pennsylvania, I never voted for judges. I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know what they did. Or sometimes I would look up and see who was recommended and I'd vote for those. But it wasn't an area that I had a lot of passion about. But as I've gotten further into politics and further into studying how decisions are made in Pennsylvania, I've realized how much more important they are than just traffic court. And so we're going to start as our Civics for Voters. We're going to start with judges. Many candidates have reached out for us to support, but also we feel that learning is good. Learning is good on a lot of levels. So today what we'd like to do is we're going to have about 40 minutes of presentation between the judge and Debbie. And then if there's anybody who's on the call today who is a candidate for judge, be sure and put that in the chat. And so after about 40 minutes of presentation, I'll call on you just to say your name, where you're from, and which office you're running for. No, we're not, this is not a time for campaign speech, but it'd be good to put a face with the names and we'll go from there. And then after this session, we'll talk a little bit more about civics education and what else we need to be learning about to get ready for future elections. So take it away, Debbie.
Thank you for inviting us. Really, truly appreciate it. As you know, this is an important year. Every year is an important election year, but sometimes the odd number years are forgotten, I will say. So what we thought was that the judge and I would sort of go back and forth and split this presentation. I'm going to skip to, why do you need to go to a courthouse, and let the judge speak about the little bit of the difference about civil and criminal cases, the structure of the cases in courts in Pennsylvania. We'll discuss the lower courts first, then the appellate courts. Philadelphia is unique in its own right, I will say, in Pennsylvania because of the number of people living in Philadelphia. So, Your Honor, do you want to begin?
Well, good morning, everyone. In Pennsylvania, where we have our Court of Common Pleas and we have our Municipal Court, those are the two trial level courts. In Philadelphia, we have municipal court. Those judges are lawyers. In the counties, in every other county throughout Pennsylvania, they have the magisterial district courts, or sometimes MDJs, magisterial district justices. Those are small claims, maybe landlord-tenant matters, some of the criminal matters that are misdemeanors or lower level cases, whether it's municipal court or magisterial district court. If somebody is sued at the minor court level, if they perfect an appeal, if they file an appeal to common pleas level, it's what we call a trial de novo. That means it's brand new. So the bulk of our cases in Pennsylvania, the trial level, when your average citizen comes to court, will be in the court of common pleas. And Debbie knows I sat in the court of common pleas for 37 years. So in Philadelphia, we have 90 judges. And of course, that's the largest district because that is the largest county. But other counties have court of common pleas. They hear civil cases. Those are cases involving money damages. They hear criminal cases, misdemeanors and felonies. They hear the family court cases. They hear orphans courts, which are wills and estates. In Philadelphia, because we have so many judges, we have 90 judges, Court of Common Pleas, we're divided into divisions. But the other counties, a judge may hear a family court case one day, a civil case the next day, a wills and estate the next day. I've been to judicial conferences, and the judges have what we call mixed calendars. And so it's a very exciting court because you get all different types of cases. But of course, the citizens who come to court, they know what their case is, and they focus and they get good, solid representation by their lawyers. And then the judges will read the paperwork and make the decision. Sometimes they're jury trials, sometimes it's non-jury.
Your Honor, do you want to explain a little bit about the jury trials? I know in municipal court, for example, you're not entitled to a jury trial.
That's exactly right. And on the Court of Common Pleas level, we'll forget about COVID for a minute, okay? We'll pretend everything is normal. At the Common Pleas level, we have jury trials, and it can be as few as 6 jurors up to 12 jurors plus 2 alternates. So the lawyers will decide. Sometimes it's by rule in the county, but the lawyers can, if both sides agree, we can have 6 jurors, 8 jurors, 10 jurors, whatever number, up to 12 jurors. And those are for criminal cases and for civil cases. That's the money damages. Family court does not have jury trials. Orphans court, no jury trials. Those are what are called bench trials. That is, the judge only hears the cases. The paperwork submitted to the family court judge or to the orphans court judge. Orphans court, there you go.
We went to that, we did that already, okay. So that was orphans, this is family, okay. So then
We'll make by the way, we'll make all these slides available. We'll send them out to everybody after the call so that you can go back and have something to refer to.
Oh, that's a great idea. I do have to give credit to Debbie Gross. She did a wonderful job on the slides. I read through them and that kind of refreshed my recollection. I appreciate that.
Debbie knows of what she speaks.
Absolutely. So now, Debbie, would you tell us about the courts?
So if you recall, the triangle gets narrower, right? As we go to the top, let's put it that way. So there are matters that maybe want to be appealed from the lower courts, which the judge spoke about, and they get appealed typically to an intermediate appellate court. And we have 2 intermediate appellate courts in Pennsylvania. One is the Superior Court and one is the Commonwealth Court. And as the judge talked about municipal court and common pleas court, we'll discuss later, but there are positions open in municipal court for election in the primary, in the common pleas court in the primary, and also in Superior, Commonwealth, and Supreme Court. The Superior Court hears appeals in civil and criminal matters. The Commonwealth Court is a court of almost original, I'll say original jurisdiction. It's unique to Pennsylvania across the state. Was founded in 1968. The judges are elected for 10-year terms. There are 9 judges. As you can see, we right now have a majority of women on this bench, which is phenomenal. It addresses matters dealing mainly with the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is a plaintiff, or you're suing the Commonwealth, some kind of real estate issue as well. It's a very, I'll say, particular court. Actually, we know that the Commonwealth Court issued one of the rulings as to whether counting of ballots should be stayed or not. So,
Right.
That's the court that that has a particular focus. Our Superior Court was founded in 1895. It hears appeals from criminal and civil cases. It has one of the busiest dockets in the country.
They hear about 8,000 appeals a year.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing. They work very hard.
Right. They write over 500 decisions. I mean, it really is one of the busiest courts in the country. This court too has a majority of women. There is a vacant seat right now, so so that's why there are only 7 Democrats, 7 Republicans. I know there are more people in the picture because there are senior judges who are also in the picture, so you know.
And please note on that last slide that Debbie pointed out, one of the founding principles of Represent is we believe in reflective democracy, that our legislatures and our courts and people should reflect what we all look like in the state in order to make sure we have equal justice. And Debbie pointed out that there is, on the appellate court today, there's 1 person of color on the bench and nobody on the Commonwealth Court.
Correct. And then the highest court, appellate court, is our Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So cases go to the Supreme Court on appeal from the Commonwealth Court, on appeal from the Superior Court. It is discretionary, so therefore this means that court only takes cases that it wants to hear. It's mandatory for a limited category of cases. It typically hears about 300 cases a year. This court does not have a majority of women, I will say, but has a good showing. Our appellate court system, our appellate courts in Pennsylvania have over 50% women. That is something that we should be really proud of. That is not common among all the states. And that's our state court. I wanted to give you a brief explanation. There's differences between filing a case in state court and filing a case in federal court. Federal court, we are all familiar with because that's the US Supreme Court. We have a 3rd Circuit Court of Appeals in Philadelphia. And then in Pennsylvania, we have actually 3 district courts. We have the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, the Western District of Pennsylvania, and the Middle District of Pennsylvania. And matters that are heard in federal court are usually the federal law, the US Constitution, and then there's this diversity. If there's a matter that's greater than $75,000, and if people file for bankruptcy. And this is, again, divided into 3. Federal judges, right, we're going to talk about elections, but federal judges are not elected. They are appointed, and I'm going to make a generalization because this is not true across every state in the country, but there is sometimes a nominating committee which makes a suggestion to a senator, who then makes a suggestion to the senators, who then make a suggestion to the president. There's an investigation, and then there's a Senate confirmation hearing. There are no age limits, whereas in state court, there are now age limits at 75. Here, a federal judge can take senior status. There is a different process for US magistrate judges and US bankruptcy judges. They are appointed for limited terms. They get, they can be renewed, and their appointments are made by the court in the location.
Right.
Debbie, in most states, are judges at these various levels elected?
Not in federal court, but in most states, most states for state judicial positions, they are not elected. Pennsylvania is rare, okay? It is one of 7 states that elect their appellate court judges. As far as their lower court state judges, there are, I forget the number. Your Honor, do you remember the number? I think
It was 38 states that elect their trial level judges. So that would be a majority of states at the trial level.
Trial level, but
And as Debbie says, you know, there's a difference between the trial level and the appellate level. So many cases are handled, no matter what state you go to, so many cases are handled at the trial level. And I think what the importance of today's presentation is that everything that your average citizen does, at some point or another, you might slip on the ice outside. You might, you know, have a little fender bender at the local intersection. So many things that we do are affected by the courts. And now, Debbie and I have a difference of opinion about election of judges. I just want everyone to understand that. but so many things are affected by the judges and by, you know, you have jurors of your peers, or you have the judge who makes the decision. And it's very, very important that everyone vote for the judges at the trial level. The appellate level, there are different considerations that are involved. And so I don't think we're really going to talk about the differences so much today, but in Pennsylvania, judicial elections are for every state court judge, trial level as well as appellate, yeah. And as you can see on the slide, municipal court or magisterial district judge are 6-year terms, but all other judges, common pleas or appellate, are 10-year terms. And then there's a retention vote. Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting, and again, this is outside of Philadelphia, but a magisterial district judge actually does not have to be a lawyer. They just have to be 21 years old. They have to take a course and pass the course. But it surprised me that, you know, a magisterial district judge does not have to be a lawyer.
Who sets that requirement? Is that a state requirement, or is that set by the local?
No, it's a state requirement.
And so
it's in the Pennsylvania
not
Constitution.
require people to be lawyers.
Nope, it's in the Pennsylvania Constitution, actually.
Mm-hmm. Right. When we used to have a traffic court in Philadelphia, they were not lawyers. Most of those judges were not lawyers, but they did have to take that class and pass that class. But municipal court in Philadelphia, they are lawyers and they're required to be lawyers. Yes.
And, okay, so that's a Philadelphia requirement. We have people on this call from throughout the state, so I'm just trying to clarify what the differences are.
Right.
And you
Now,
said
many of the magisterial district judges are lawyers.
Yeah.
And they're permitted, and they are permitted to have a limited private practice outside of their work as a magisterial district judge. I keep saying MDJ, but as a magisterial district judge, they are permitted. But you know, it's not an absolute requirement, as Debbie just said. Yeah.
Okay, and then go back to that other slide. I just wanted to ask one other question about it. So you said 38 states elect judges like Court of Common Pleas and below.
Correct.
But the appellate courts were one of only 7 states that elects judges. I assume that means the other states are appointed and there's an appointment and review process. And how about Supreme Court in other states?
That's part of the appellate court. So that's
also, we're one of only 7 states.
And the reason,
go ahead.
The other reason is because the appellate courts don't see as many cases, right? They're also more of a review process. So they actually don't really meet with they don't have trials. They don't have you as a plaintiff typically don't come into court and present your case unless you're representing yourself, but your lawyer is going into the appellate courts to make an argument, and maybe you'll go and watch, you know, your lawyer maybe.
Right. It's more legal focus. You have to look at a particular statute or the restatement of torts, you know, so in that case, it's just much more specific on the appellate level.
Okay, I was just trying to figure out where Pennsylvania stood versus other states. Because I know former Justice Sandra Day O'Connor worked for a while on getting rid of the election of judges. And
Well, she was in from Arizona, I believe.
Yeah, but she was part of a national group. Yeah. Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay, no problem. So we were talking about running for election or how you become a judge. You have to be a member of the bar. You must be a resident for a year before you run. In Pennsylvania, we talked about how there are 38 states that have election of trial court judges, but some of those states actually have nonpartisan elections. So, Pennsylvania has partisan elections, right?
Of course we do.
And the other thing is, again, for state court judges, we actually raised the age limit to 75 recently within the past 5 years. It was a constitutional amendment that was proposed as a referendum and was approved by the voters. So this year is an election year. There is one Pennsylvania Supreme Court judicial position open, one Pennsylvania Superior Court, 2 Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court, 8 Philadelphia County Court of Common Pleas, 3 Philadelphia Municipal Court, and these are all on the primary ballot in May. Then we have retention elections, which are in the November ballot, and those are again for judges who have already served their 10-year terms or Philly Municipal Court, yes, and then are up for it's a yes or no vote. Should they be retained going forward?
Again, they're only showing the courts or who's on the ballot in Philadelphia, but in all of the regions throughout Pennsylvania, there were court elections, probably similar numbers of people. But the Commonwealth Court, the Superior Court, and the Supreme Court are statewide elections.
Absolutely. Now, I thought I would add in your next slide, I'll talk a little bit about how to evaluate the candidates. In Allegheny County, and of course in Philadelphia County, and there may be other counties also, the local bar association will evaluate candidates, and you can find out information about the candidates either through the Philadelphia Bar Association, which of course focuses on Philadelphia, and the Pennsylvania Bar Association has an evaluation process for those statewide appellate candidates.
And the Allegheny County Bar Association also does that as well. Theirs is not yet available. They're still on their website. It's still in the process, but they also evaluate appellate court candidates as well as the trial court candidates.
Right. And within the other counties now, there are 60 there's 67 counties, and each county will decide how they want to evaluate. Some counties may not have an evaluation process because a county is small and everybody knows everybody. There are other counties, 2 or 3 counties might get together and decide to have an evaluation process. But no matter what,
counties getting together, do you mean county bar associations getting together?
Yes. So because we have,
is there a reference, if one goes to the pabar.org, would you find a link to all the other bar associations in the state?
No,
how would somebody in Center County find who's being evaluated in their county?
They'd go to county.org.
No, well, or just put in, Center County Bar Association, Erie County Bar Association, and you can find it.
And we do have 60 judicial counties. So although there's 67 counties, there's 60. Some of the judges hear cases from more than one county because the counties are smaller as far as population. So we do have some judges on the common pleas level who will hear cases from 2 or 3 counties. And I have a little, go ahead, Debbie.
I was just going to say, the only thing I was going to say is that And Your Honor, I'm sure you can explain this better than
Yeah.
I can. While we have all these counties, we're supposed to have uniformity across each county in applying the law, okay, there are variations, I will say. So each county has their own local rules. Some counties have electronic filings, some don't. So I know that we are working on it. This is being worked on through the administrative office of the Supreme Court, and they are trying. But Pennsylvania, unfortunately, has an older court system, I will say. And like Philadelphia has a first judicial district that does a lot on its own and doesn't wait for the entire state to come online, right? Is the only way to say it.
So can we, Debbie, maybe you can send us something after this that we'll include in our follow-up that talks about if you're in a different county, how do you go find out who's been recommended and what kind of comments there are about those candidates?
Sure, absolutely.
Now, the process of the questionnaire you see there, and I'm going to review for you how to find out information in Philadelphia, Allegheny, or the statewide candidates. It's very similar for those three areas, but I think it's probably very similar all over. First of all, many newspapers will put in, have individuals who will write about a lawyer who's running for judge. But what the counties do in Philadelphia, Allegheny, or Pennsylvania is they have a questionnaire. They ask each person who's running to fill out the questionnaire. And for the Pennsylvania Bar Association, and I can say the Philadelphia Bar Association, it's online. And you can read the questionnaire, you can read the answers that each attorney has given, and you get an idea of their legal ability because you find out what jobs they held before they were running. Some of the candidates, for example, for appellate court, they are already judges, not all of them, but some of them are. And so you get an idea of what kind of cases they've been handling. You get an idea of what kind of jobs they've had. Were they in private practice? Were they in law school? What law school they went to? What college they went to? Where did they grow up? Because don't forget, sometimes a student comes from another state, but goes to law school in Pennsylvania and stays in Pennsylvania. Or sometimes students after college, they work for a few years before they go to law school, and you get an idea of the background of the individuals who are running. You get an idea of their professional records. You'll find out perhaps they ran before for judge or for some other office. You also get an idea of their trial experiences. Were they in the DA's office? Were they in the public defender's office? Did they have a general practice? Sometimes a candidate was in academics. They were a law professor, or they did a combination. They taught classes as well as had a private practice.
Yeah, we had a question somebody put up while the
what's the question? You tell me.
Put up that chart again about qualifications for judges. So I think that helps. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Please continue, Your Honor.
Sure. You on the questionnaire. After the questionnaire is filled out, in Philadelphia, Allegheny, as well as Pennsylvania Bar Association, I can't speak as to the other counties, but they will have a team of 2 or 3 individuals.
Wait, Your Honor, of 5 people, at least one of whom is a non-lawyer, which is really important. So
I didn't mean on the teams?
Yep, on the teams. Okay. So I'm going to make a plug, but if anybody wants to be an investigator, I will send out an email also with who they should reach out to, because it's not that time consuming, but it's really important. And I'm heading up a team right now. We have 1 person who's not a lawyer and the other 4 are. Sometimes there are teams with 3 lawyers and 2 non-lawyers, but And the lawyers are typically from different types of practices. Some, some work in federal court, honestly, and some do state court, but it's volunteers, and it's wonderful.
And the reason this is an important conversation for everybody is I've heard criticism, when I talk about, hey, be sure and look at what the Bar Association says. It's been said to me, well, the Bar Association really only looks for other old white guys because they're perpetuating themselves and perpetuating their image. And, I'm of course very, as you all know, if you've been down any represent events, I'm very sensitive to that being an issue. However, I'm aware that there are non-lawyers and that they're trying to get a diversity of opinions in evaluating the candidates. So if you've heard that, please volunteer to help, but also it's important for people to know this is the kind of thing that's evaluated.
And so I also want to just take a step back and say that for example, the Philadelphia Bar Association's Judicial Selection Commission or Judicial Election Commission is actually comprised of 28 different people. They are, lawyers, non-lawyers, they're representative of different parts of the legal community. You have somebody from one of the diversity bar associations. You have somebody from a legal nonprofit. You have the public defender's office. You have the Philadelphia DA's office. You have the U.S. Attorney office. You have a judge usually from municipal court, from common pleas court. You have like a trial lawyer. You have a defense lawyer. The Bar Association has strived to bring together as many different types of practices and people as possible. That's part of this commission that actually will hear the presentation by the investigative team. So go ahead, Your Honor. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, sure.
If I could just add one more comment, there's been some talk in the chat about whether these things are political. If you could also in your discussion talk about, because the various political party endorsements come out, Bob Brady has decided who his candidate is for judge and that kind of thing. And I want to know, so are you saying that you personally would support more looking into what the Bar Association evaluates as opposed to the political party endorsements?
So I can tell you that.
And you might have different opinions, so you both can talk.
Yeah, go ahead, Your Honor.
Well, the Bar Association certainly does try to have a diverse teams, and then the teams make a presentation to the full Judicial Evaluation Commission. There's no question about it. When I was president judge, I sat on the Evaluation Commission for 5 years, and I would hear the presentations. And there's no question if a bar association, whatever level, says a candidate is qualified or recommended or not recommended or highly recommended, whatever the rating is, there's no question that does have an impact. And there are people who are going to vote based on what the bar associations say. On the other hand, or in addition, I'm not sure how I would put it, the political parties, Republican as well as Democrat, make certain endorsements. And it's those endorsements which the ward leaders will follow. And it's most ward leaders, not necessarily all. And it's those endorsements where campaign literature is given out on election day. So I think, and again, this is a personal opinion. We'll hear from Debbie in a minute, but I do believe that an endorsement from a political party will have a greater impact than an endorse or a recommendation from the Bar Association.
So
but that's my opinion.
So actually, a few things. One, we somewhat have run into a disagreement at times with the political parties,
yes,
meaning the Bar Association, because they actually wanted to have a seat on their commission and we said no. They also wanted to, they wanted us to take into consideration their recommendations and we said no. So the Bar Association has come up against some tension from the political parties. So, over the years, we actually did as a full court press, I will say, and we actually had it analyzed by a private economic research company, where we went and took our findings. We printed them up on our recommendations and printed them up on a little ticket, and spent the entire day at, I think we picked maybe 20 different election sites and presented our handout. And then we studied the results, and it actually showed that the Bar Association's recommendations, but it was a small sample, made a difference when the Bar Association was there handing out information about which candidates were recommended or not recommended by the Bar Association. I will tell you that there have been, and I'm not proud of this, right? There have been candidates who the Bar Association has not recommended, who have gotten number one on the ballot position, who therefore
Explain
have
what that means. Explain how ballot
Right.
position is done.
Right, we haven't even gotten to that part of our discussion yet,
Keep delaying your presentation.
and time is running out.
Okay,
but-
sorry, keep going.
Go ahead, Your Honor. You finish with
I've
this.
been
and then
trying
we-
to filter in a lot of the questions that are coming up in the chat. So please go.
Well, I'll just mention ballot position, Debbie, you jump in, because for the appellate courts, it matters also. But for example, in Philadelphia, again, there are 8 vacancies on Common Pleas Court, and I believe there are about 20 to 25 people running for Common Pleas Court. Well, as you can imagine, on the machine, a voting machine, no matter where you live in the state, 25 names in a row, whether you go from top to bottom or across, that's a lot of names. Some places still have the levers, some places you just push a button, it's electronic. But if you can be recommended highly by the Bar Association, endorsed highly by the political party, but if your name's smack in the middle of 25 names, you're going to get lost in the crowd. So as Debbie just mentioned, it's, for whatever reason, people, citizens, voters, many of them will just vote for the top 2 or 3 names or top 8 names. It says vote for 8. They might just pick the first row of 8, or going across the first row of 8, and it could be anybody. You know what I mean? Go ahead.
What's good now is that the Bar Associations actually have a mobile app that you can access, which will have their recommendations, and you can take it with you into where you vote, or if you do mail-in ballots, you can do it from home with your computer and doing research. But there have been situations, unfortunately, where the number one position so the candidates actually pick out of a hat where their position is on the ballot. So that's a big day. And sometimes some candidates drop out because they know they're on the bottom rung, and they have decided not, they change their mind and decide not to run, simply because of their position, their number that they picked out of the hat, which is very unfortunate.
We have an election calendar, and I say we because Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and anybody can access it. It's with the Pennsylvania State Department, and you can see what the calendar is. But from February 16th through March 9th, which was yesterday, any candidate statewide or had to file their nomination petitions. All right. And then from yesterday to next week, March 16th, if anybody is objecting to a nomination petition, they can file it. So sometimes I've had good friends on Common Pleas Court where 2 or 3 people were running for an appellate position, and they're no longer friends and no longer speaking because one candidate objected to the petitions of another candidate. And maybe there were not enough signatures, or the signatures were bad, or whatever. And then the ballot positions this year will be picked on March 17th. Is that St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah.
Yes. The
Yep.
ballot positions will be picked on March 17th. And then by the 24th of March, as Debbie says, that's the day for candidate withdrawal. So somebody might decide that they, after all is said and done, that the petitions and but their position on the ballot is such, they're not going to run. Well, then they can withdraw by the 24th of March.
And what's important about this calendar, and I put this slide up, is because, for example, we at Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts hold appellate court candidate forums. So I have been going all along, and we've scheduled the first one for the candidates for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. It's next week. It's March 17th. There have been 3 judges who are running, and yesterday a new entrant appeared that I hadn't heard of. Okay, honestly, and her name is she's currently a judge of the Commonwealth Court. It's Judge Patty McCullough. So we now have actually on the running for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, 3 Republicans and 1 Democrat. And honestly, there were 2 Democrats who were running, but only 1 received the Democratic committee support. So the other judge withdrew. So it is a moving target.
Right. And I think one of the Superior Court candidates, is he still a candidate?
Yeah, he is.
Oh. Okay.
And there's a new Superior Court candidate also who's just signed up, named Megan Sullivan. So this slide, which was current as of 2 days ago, is not current.
Then, Debbie, you mentioned, okay, so for Supreme Court, there's 1 opening. Will we
Correct.
vote? Is it the decisive election in May, or is it a primary and you vote for a party and then the
Correct. So the May is the primary. So if you're Republican, you're going to choose right now, unless it changes, between 3 candidates. If you're a Democrat, you only have 1 candidate to choose from.
And again, like everything else, you have to be registered with that party to vote for the candidate.
Correct.
And so if you're an independent or a libertarian or, Green Party, you are not voting in the primary for these candidates.
Okay.
Your Honor, do you want to,
You've got another 5 minutes and I've been taking out of your time.
Okay, so then I just will tell you, I put up here that we Pennsylvania for Modern Courts will be having judicial candidate forums. This is to get to know the candidates, right? You can't ask candidates questions about their belief on how they're going to rule in a case. That's just, so there's a problem here. When you want to try to find out information about a judge, you are going on their, I would say, not on how they rule, but, or how they would rule on something, because that's not proper, but on their, as we said, on their background, references, your own investigation, plus the bar associations.
Right. And that's why it's very important to look at the questionnaires to get an idea of their background and whatnot. I think that's very helpful, because you look at their financial responsibility. Look at maybe you get an idea of their integrity, their organizational skills, as someone that's been able to, toss a lot of balls in the air and keep things moving in their own lives. And I think that makes a difference too.
So,
because, yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Does Legal Women Voters also offer information on judges?
Say that again.
I don't know. I actually don't know, but I can tell you that I have been working with an organization called Better Civics, and we're working on a toolkit that will actually provide information. It'll be on their website and our website, but it's in process. But on my website, we have some information now about elections, that'll give you information about the voters, also about the judges running for election. The other places to look at are like the Judicial Disciplinary Board, right? It's to make sure that the judge hasn't been disciplined, or also if it's an attorney, the Pennsylvania Attorney Disciplinary Board. You can, even before you hire an attorney, you should always research your attorney to make sure the attorney hasn't been disciplined. So there are ways in Pennsylvania, not everything's public, okay, but there are, when there is a discipline, it is public.
But that
So-
kind of information is included in the questionnaires, is it not? I mean,
Yeah,
don't
we
the
do that.
questionnaires ask, have you ever been disciplined?
Yeah,
It is included, but we also,
No.
like, as an investigative team, you
Right.
also double check.
Right,
right. But keep in mind, you want a judge who's impartial.
right.
So you don't want a judge who's going to express an opinion, I'm a diehard X or a diehard Y, because that means they're not impartial. You want someone who's going to keep an open mind, who, if the jury comes back with a certain verdict, they're going to abide by the verdict. If you have a case without a jury, in whatever court you're in, you want someone who's going to listen to both sides. I mean, that's what being a judge is all about, to listen to both sides. Let's see, what's this? Debbie,
This
go
was-
ahead.
I mean, this was just part of the calendar, right? We all need to vote, and these are the days to register.
And to
vote.
register and all, yeah.
So there was not much more on the voting. Your Honor wanted to talk about some of the judges and I guess a little bit of background. Do you want to do that? Or?
Probably
No.
about out of time for that. I think
Okay,
Okay.
fine.
we'll
Okay,
have to
so-
have people go up and you'll be getting your information, all the, I think we'll be sending you the links to some of the organizations that were mentioned. We'll also make sure that we remind you of all these kind of things and the issues. I think that the things that we wanted to make sure you understood today was what are the different courts? How do they work? How do you pick judges? And it's a very long process, but it's an important one. And I really want to thank the judge and Debbie both for presenting us this information, allowing me to intersperse the questions that were coming up on the chat, and make sure you all knew what was going on the elections.
And just a comment on one of the chats, Pennsylvania Department of State is, that's on the, you can Google it or whatever, on their website, State Department of Pennsylvania will have the list of all the candidates who have filed their petitions. And when you get the names of the candidates, then you can go to a different website, and you go to the Pennsylvania Judicial Evaluation, or you go to your own Philadelphia Bar Association evaluation. But in order to get the names, you need to go to the Pennsylvania State Department website.
Yeah, and they've been running the list of, and keeping the running list of who is running, so you can go onto that website at any point. What I'd like to do now is, Jamie, do we have candidates for judge on the call today? Anybody?
Yeah, I see some. I definitely see some.
Okay, so if you identified yourself in the chat, Jamie, do you want to call on people? Just say which race you're running for and what part of the state you're from.
Yep, so we have Judge Laurie Dumas. You can go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Laurie Dumas. I am a judge here in Philadelphia. I've been on the bench for 19 years now, and I am running for the Commonwealth Court. And I will say that Judge Messiah-Jackson, it is great to see you, and we miss you. We miss you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
And we will be having a Commonwealth Court candidate forum. Your Honor, I haven't reached out to you yet because I'm working with the Dauphin County Library to schedule that one. So I am waiting for a date from them. So I will reach out to you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you'll be able to learn more by going to the website for the Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts. Our video should be up in the next week. It'll be available on the our YouTube channel.
Good morning. I'm Rania Major. I'm currently running for judge in Philadelphia. I'm on both MC and CP until the ballot poll that you were just talking about out of the can or the bag. However, they're doing it this year. I've been a lawyer for 33 years, and to learn more about me, you can go to major4 with the number 4 judge.com. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
hi, Your Honor. Good seeing you.
Thank you for joining us. So let's not waste 2021. Like I'm saying this on every one of our calls, talking about what are we thinking about? Obviously, we're thinking about civics for voters. We're thinking about how to increase represents reach by being on the PCN website. But how else do we make sure people know what's going on in Pennsylvania so that you've got more education about candidates and visibility and what are the big issues affecting Pennsylvanians? On the civics for voters sides, we need to make sure that people understand what's happening on the state policy issues. The $15 minimum wage is off the agenda right now in DC, but that doesn't mean it's off the agenda or should be off the agenda in Pennsylvania. As many of you know, Pennsylvania is the only Northeast state that still has a 7.25 federal minimum wage. Even West Virginia has a higher minimum wage than we do, and all these surrounding states all have a much higher minimum wage than we do. These are the kind of things you should know, and if you care about, you should be talking to your legislators about, no matter whether you think your legislators on your side agrees with you or not. We're talking about how do we educate voters about the important decisions that get made in Harrisburg. And so I'm asking you who else we should be working with. Next slide. One of the big issues that's going to be coming up in Pennsylvania that we all have to start paying attention to is the stimulus. The Recovery Act is a massive amount of money that was raised, whatever, the $1.9 trillion. A lot of that goes to individuals, but a lot of it comes to both the state and the large cities around. How is that money? Is it all, does the federal government decide how it's going to be allocated, or how much is coming through the PA legislature? We know with some of the last funding, they ended up using the money to plug some budget gaps in Pennsylvania, which is not necessarily bad, but what kind of gaps are they plugging? Is enough money going to healthcare? Is enough money going to so many other issues that are important to people in Pennsylvania? And we'll be looking also for the infrastructure bill when it comes out. How much of that can come to Pennsylvania? How do we stay current and how do we influence the decisions? I saw somebody just put on there about election laws. In April, we're going to be running an event with around voter suppression and around what are the laws that are coming through in the Pennsylvania leadership. And so watch for that one too. Next slide. But there's a lot of money coming into Pennsylvania, and I'm not real comfortable with who's making the decisions. I don't know about you. So check out our.
I'm just going to, Chris, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. Money comes into Pennsylvania for many different reasons from all over, right? There's money coming into Pennsylvania from outside of Pennsylvania for judicial elections. Hopefully there will be some kind of reform that will be presented at some point during this year as well for financial, fundraising.
Yeah, Pennsylvania is one of the few states in the country that has absolutely no limits on how money comes in, and also how candidates and elected officials spend their campaign money. So there's a lot of money coming into the state. And yes, they're affecting the judicial elections. And that's one of the things that made us nervous and makes us nervous about the idea of districting the higher level courts in Pennsylvania, because that's a ripe opportunity for money to come in and influence our court system.
In our 2015 election for our Supreme Court, for one court, there was $25 million that came into our state.
From out of state.
Not all from out of state, but 24 for that election.
Right.
And so, that's a lot of money in 2015. So,
Yes, it is. But we also know that we'll talk about that on our April 16th event, but it's an awful lot of money that comes into our campaigns, and what's going on with the election laws is just scary. Volunteer with us. We need help in development events. Is there a subject we should be covering that we haven't done yet? We're always up for somebody's good idea. And we have some future briefings. In March, you probably received announcements that we have 2 generous donors who are each matching the first $10,000 of new money that comes in March. And so that could be an additional $20,000 to our work. And thank you to those donors. But we've sent out announcements about that. As part of the Woman's Her Story Month, We want to talk about two different issues. One is on March 18th, we're going to be talking about modernizing the Equal Pay Act. We have three state reps who are going to come on and talk about the legislation that they have sponsored in Harrisburg. We've got on March 31st, we have another state rep, Morgan Cephas, who's going to talk about women's health issues in the state and things she's working with as head of the Women's Health Commission policy group as part of the Democratic House Caucus. And we have a physician also talking about what issues she sees. And as I said, on April 16th, we're going to be talking with the State Government Committee, what's happening with election laws and what we can do about it and how we can make changes. And you can support us with money. You know, we, as you all know, or many of you know, we invested $500,000 last cycle in candidates. We see that there's some special elections coming up, and a lot of, we want to make sure that we're supporting our candidates for re-election early this year. And we're talking about timing of money in early 2022. In order to have that money, we need to raise it now. So everybody, thank you very much. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your interest in our work, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Debbie and Your Honor.